screen lit up before I understood what I was seeing. That is the only way I know how to begin this. Not with an explanation. Not with all the years that came before it, or the quiet suspicions. I had tucked beneath my tongue like seeds I refused to plant. It began with light. A cold, sudden rectangle of blue-white light flooding the front wall of Greater Calvary Fellowship. The wall where we had hung the cross on the day the church was consecrated. The wall where we had projected the faces of babies being dedicated to the Lord, where we had shown slides of our missionaries in Ghana and Honduras, where the words to every hymn and every scripture had appeared for 31 years. That wall lit up on a Sunday morning with something that did not belong to God. I heard the sound first. The soft electronic chime of a notification landing on glass. Then the shuffle. Then the stillness that spread through the congregation like a wave moving backward. From the front pews to the back. From the deacon's bench to the mother's corner. I felt the air change. You know how air changes weight in a room when something shifts. When a door opens onto cold, or when someone says a name that should not be spoken aloud. The air in Greater Calvary did that. It changed. And I was sitting in the fourth pew from the front left side, where I had sat every Sunday for 27 years. I was wearing my ivory linen blazer. I had ironed it the night before. My husband, Pastor Elijah Reeves, had been mid-sentence. He was preaching on loyalty. I remember the exact words because I had heard him rehearse that sermon twice in our living room on Friday evening. Loyalty is not what you profess from the pulpit, he had said, leaning into the microphone. Loyalty is what you do when nobody is watching. He stopped. The sanctuary went completely quiet. Not the quiet that settles when a preacher pauses for effect. Every woman in that congregation knew that pause the way he would let silence gather before a crescendo. This was a different quiet. A held breath quiet. An all air gone quiet. I looked up from my bulletin. On the wall behind my husband, projected in characters tall enough to be read from the last row, was a text message thread. A photograph. A name I had never heard spoken in my home, and words specific, intimate, unambiguous words that left nothing to interpretation, nothing to question, nothing to the mercy of doubt. I felt my breath leave my body, the way breath leaves during a fall, not in a gasp, not in a sob, just gone. My hands went cold from the palms outward, the way water goes cold from the surface down. My legs did not move. I do not believe I could have moved them if the building had caught fire. One woman, somewhere in the third row, said one word: Lord. That was all one word from one woman. And it landed in that sanctuary like a stone dropped into still water. A child somewhere behind me began to cry, not loudly, not dramatically, just that thin, confused cry that children produce when the adults around them have all gone rigid and the room no longer feels safe. I heard a Bible slide off a lap and hit the floor with a flat, soft sound. My husband turned around. I watched him see what the congregation had already seen. I watched his body register. The stiffening across the shoulders, the slight backward step, the way his right hand moved toward his jacket pocket, and then stopped. He turned back around. He looked across the sanctuary. And when his eyes found mine, because they always found mine, in 31 years they had always found mine across every room, what I saw in them was not what I had prayed to God I would see. I did not see remorse. I saw calculation. And in that single moment, I understood that what was about to happen would be far worse than anything I had yet allowed myself to imagine. Let me tell you who I was in that church before I tell you what happened after. I had been a member of Greater Calvary Fellowship for 31 years. I joined the summer. I turned 28, 6 months after Elijah was installed as the new pastor of what was then a congregation of about 90 families meeting in a converted storefront on Pemberton Avenue. We married 2 years later in that same sanctuary. By then we had renovated the space, added a proper baptismal pool, installed real pews. I wore my mother's pearls, his mother sang. Over the years, I'd served in almost every ministry that church had. I sang in the choir for 11 years. I directed the women's fellowship for 9. I was the head of the bereavement ministry, the one who organized meals for families after funerals, who coordinated the white handkerchiefs, who sat with widows in the hour after their husbands were lowered into the ground and knew what to say and what not to say. I knew how to sit with grief. I knew how to make it bearable. I'd spent decades doing exactly that. When the church grew, and it did grow, from 90 families to nearly 400, I grew with it. Not in title, not in salary, in presence, in labor, in the particular kind of invisible work that keeps a church functioning. The phone calls made before anyone knew a problem existed. The supplies ordered before the Sunday school teacher ran out. The offering counted and recorded. The flowers replaced before they wilted on the altar. My name was not on the marquee. My name was not in the bulletin under a formal title. But every woman over 60 in that congregation knew my name, knew my phone number, and knew that if they needed something practical, spiritual, or silent, I was the one to call. That was who I was in that room when the screen lit up. I'm telling you this not for pride. I'm telling you this so you understand the full weight of what my husband had placed on that altar for 31 years. The labor of my hands, the testimony of my life, and what he had been willing to risk and discard for what that screen revealed. What I did not yet know, sitting in that pew with my hands folded and my face still, was that the screen had only shown me the surface. The full truth had not yet arrived. And when it did, it would come in layers, each one heavier than the last. His service did not continue. There is no graceful way to describe what happens to a congregation in the minutes after something like that. There is no liturgy for it. There is no benediction. People did not rush toward the exits. They did not rush toward the altar. They stayed in their pews, some of them, with that particular stillness of people who have witnessed something too large to process while standing. The associate minister, Brother Isaiah Caldwell, a younger man, maybe 40, who had served beside Elijah for 6 years, came to the microphone and said, very quietly, that he thought it best that the congregation take a moment to pray and then be dismissed. He did not explain. He did not need to. He said, "Let us bow our heads." And he prayed the most careful prayer I have ever heard a person pray, not addressing what had happened, not pretending it hadn't, just asking God to be present in that room, to cover every heart, to lead every person home safely. And then he said, "You're dismissed." I remained seated. I watched the congregation file out. I watched women touch each other's arms as they passed. I watched men keep their eyes low. I watched 3 of the deacons gather near the side entrance, speaking in low voices, their heads inclined toward each other. I watched Brother Cornelius Hayes, the man who ran our technical ministry, a quiet and faithful servant of this church for over a decade, unplug everything on the tech table with the slow, careful movements of a man who understood the weight of his inadvertent role. and would carry it with dignity. What had happened was straightforward, and I learned it from Brother Cornelius himself when we spoke privately later that week. He had been stepping away from the projection table when his elbow disturbed the cable connecting the display system to the laptop. In that moment of reconnection, the screen defaulted to the laptop's live desktop, which was actively syncing notifications from my husband's personal phone. Plugged in to charge at the tech table, as Elijah had asked Brother Cornelius to do that morning. Elijah had done this for months. He had felt safe. He was not safe, and neither, it turned out, had I been, for far longer than I knew. My husband had left the pulpit within minutes of the screen going dark. He did not come to me. Sister Laverne Okafor found me before I stood up. Laverne had been my friend since the first year I joined Greater Calvary. She was 3 years older than me, a woman of extraordinary composure, the kind of woman who dressed formally even on casual occasions because she believed that care and presentation was a form of self-respect. She sat down beside me in the pew, without asking permission, without announcing herself, without any preamble at all. She simply sat, and she took my right hand between both of hers and held it, the way you hold something fragile and precious that you are afraid might break if you loosen your grip. She did not say anything for a long time. Then she said, "I'm here." That is all. I held on to those 2 words for the rest of that day. My husband came home at 3:30 in the afternoon. I was sitting at the kitchen table. I had made tea. I had not drunk. I had called my daughter, Kezia, who lived 2 states away, and I had told her what happened in the most organized, clear-eyed way I could manage. And I had listened to her cry on the phone, and I had told her I was all right. And I had told her to stay where she was, and I had sat back down at the kitchen table and waited. When Elijah walked through the door, he looked diminished. That is the word. He had always been a large presence man, tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of man whose entry into a room changed the temperature of it. He walked through our kitchen door looking diminished. He set his keys on the counter in the place he always set them. That small, ordinary gesture, the keys landing on the counter in their usual spot, struck me as one of the most surreal things I had ever witnessed. He said my name. I said, "I need you to tell me the truth, all of it, starting with how long." He sat down across from me. He told me, "I will not reproduce that conversation in full. I will tell you the essential truth that came out of it, because that truth matters. It had been going on for 4 years. There had been one woman. There had been no children. He had believed for 4 years that he had been careful enough. He had believed that what he was doing did not diminish what we had," he said. "I never stopped loving you." I looked at him across our kitchen table. The table where we had eaten 30 years of meals, where we had prayed together before sunrise on the mornings he was preparing sermons, where we had sat across from each other in the early grief of losing our first pregnancy and held hands and cried together. And I told him the truth in return. I said, "That sentence does not mean what you think it means. Love is not a feeling that exists separate from what you do, what you did for 4 years. To me, to this church, to the people who trusted you, that is who you chose to be. You don't get to keep the feeling and disclaim the action." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "I want you to be accountable to the board, to this congregation, the way you have preached that other people ought to be." What I did not say aloud, but what I knew sitting at that table, was that the conversation we were having was not the end of the uncovering. There was still more. I could feel it the way you feel weather before it arrives. And I was right. The Deacon Board of Greater Calvary Fellowship met on a Wednesday evening, 5 days after that Sunday. I was not present in the room. This was not my meeting to attend. It was the board's meeting, convened by the chairman, Deacon Reginald Ashby, a man in his 70s who had served that church for over 4 decades and who, in all the years I had known him, had never once conducted a church matter carelessly. He was not a man who moved quickly or spoke loudly. He was the kind of man who understood that the slower you moved through something this serious, the more correctly you moved. What I know about that meeting, I learned from Deacon Ashby himself, who called me the following morning. He told me that the board had met for nearly 3 hours, that they had reviewed the church's bylaws governing pastoral conduct, that they had spoken with Elijah directly, and that Elijah had not denied what had been made public, that they had prayed together, the board and Elijah, before any formal vote was taken, and that at the end of that meeting, by a unanimous decision of the full board, Elijah was removed from his pastoral role at Greater Calvary Fellowship, effective immediately, with a formal letter of removal to be read to the congregation on the following Sunday. Deacon Ashby told me that this had been one of the hardest nights of his life. He told me he had loved Elijah as a son. He told me the board had wept. Then he said, "But we could not stand in front of this congregation and preach accountability to them from a pulpit. We were not willing to hold accountable ourselves." I thanked him. After I hung up the phone, I sat for a while in the chair by the window in our bedroom, my bedroom now, alone. And I thought about what it cost a community to do the right thing. I thought about those men sitting in that room. Men who had built something real with Elijah over many years, who had preached beside him and traveled beside him and trusted him with the spiritual care of hundreds of people. I thought about what it cost them to vote the way they voted. And I was grateful for the cost. I was grateful that it had cost them something. A decision that cost nothing is not really a decision. The Sunday after the board's vote, Brother Isaiah Caldwell read the letter from the pulpit. I was present. I was in my seat, 4th pew, left side. I did not sit in the first pew. I did not sit in the back. I sat where I'd always sat because I had done nothing that required me to disappear. When Brother Isaiah finished reading the letter, there was a silence that seemed to last longer than it did. Long silence. The kind of silence that a congregation holds when it is deciding, collectively, what it believes. I could feel the room breathing. I could feel the weight of hundreds of people choosing. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in the quiet movement of hearts. And then, one by one, the congregation began to sing. No one called for the song. No one gave direction. Sister Odessa Blackwell, who had led the senior choir for 15 years, simply opened her mouth from the 3rd row and began. We've come this far by faith. And one by one, slowly, carefully, the way light returns after a long darkness, the voices around her joined in. First 3 voices, then a dozen, then the whole left side of the sanctuary, then the right, then the mothers in the corner, who had been sitting with their hands in their laps and their eyes closed, lifted their heads and added their voices too. Some people were crying, some were not. But every voice in that room was singing the same words, and every voice was singing them for the same reason. Not because the trouble was over, but because they were still there, still standing, still together on ground they had chosen not to abandon. I did not sing immediately. I sat for a moment with the sound washing over me. All those voices, all those years, all that faithful labor. and I let myself feel it fully. The grief of it, the beauty of it, the impossible, sustaining grace of a community that chooses to keep going when the thing that shook it could have destroyed it. Then I opened my mouth and I sang. In the weeks that followed, my community showed up for me in the way that communities do when they choose to. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in the steady, layered accumulation of small acts that together form something solid enough to stand on. Sister Laverne Okafor, who had sat beside me in the pew and said, "I'm here," called me every single morning for 6 weeks. Not a long call, not a call where she asked me how I was doing with the expectation that I would perform recovery for her comfort. She would call. We would talk for 10 or 15 minutes about ordinary things. What she had cooked, what she had read, what the weather was doing. And before she hung up, she would say, "I'll call you tomorrow." The constancy of that was its own kind of medicine. Sister Paulette Drummond, a woman from the bereavement ministry I had led for 9 years, left a meal on my porch on 4 separate occasions. She did not ring the doorbell. She did not wait for acknowledgement. I would find the dish there, covered, labeled, warm, and there would be a small card with a scripture written on it. Nothing more. No commentary, no advice. Just food and the Word of God, which is often exactly what a person needs and exactly what they cannot ask for. Sister Naomi Whitfield, who was one of the younger women in the congregation, younger than me by about 20 years, saved my seat in the pew on the first Sunday. I returned after a week at home. She had placed her Bible on one side and her coat on the other. And when I walked in and saw my seat held for me, I had to stop at the end of the aisle and compose myself before I could continue walking. It was the smallest gesture. It was enormous. These women did not swoop in as rescuers. They did not make my survival their project or their testimony. They simply stayed near. They did the work of faithful presence, which is the oldest and most undervalued form of love that exists within any congregation. There is one more thing I need to tell you, and I tell it carefully, because it is not my story to tell fully, only enough to say what it meant. About 3 weeks after the board's decision, I was in the church fellowship hall helping to prepare for a midweek prayer service. Sister Gloria Tanner, a woman in her late 60s who had been one of the quietest, most self-contained members of the congregation for as long as I had known her, came and stood beside me at the table where I was folding bulletins. She stood there for a moment without speaking, and then she said, very quietly, not looking at me, "There was a time, maybe 7, 8 years ago, when he said something to me after a meeting that I never felt right about. I didn't say anything. I didn't know if I was reading it correctly. I told myself I wasn't." She picked up a stack of bulletins and began folding them beside me. "I'm sorry," she said, "that I didn't trust what I felt." I did not ask her to elaborate. I did not need to. I put my hand briefly on her shoulder, and we folded bulletins together in silence. And I understood that what she had just offered me was not a confession and not an accusation. It was something more honest than either. It was a woman acknowledging the cost of silence, the cost that women in churches pay when we are taught to defer to authority rather than trust the still, quiet voice of our own knowing. She was not the only one. There was another woman, a longtime member, faithful, trusted, who told me privately in the weeks after that she had noticed, across many years, a pattern of behavior from Elijah toward women in the congregation that she had always found slightly wrong in a way she could never fully name. She had attributed it to personality. She had told herself she was being uncharitable. She had said nothing. I want to be careful how I say what I am about to say. I'm not telling you these things to expand the indictment or to make this story larger than it already is. I'm telling you because this is what happened. And because what happened needs to be named honestly. When a man in spiritual authority betrays that authority, he almost never does it invisibly to everyone. There are nearly always women in the congregation who have felt something. A discomfort, a wrongness, a moment that did not land correctly. And who have stayed quiet because the cost of speaking seemed too high and the certainty seemed too low. The church, without meaning to, teaches women to distrust their own perception when it conflicts with the reputation of a powerful man. When truth finally surfaces, it often surfaces because something ordinary failed. A cable, a screen, a Sunday morning where the systems of concealment simply stopped working. But the truth had been pressing against the surface long before that morning. It always is. I want to tell you where I am now. I am not going to tell you that I have healed completely, because I think that kind of language does a disservice to the real texture of what recovery from something like this looks like. I am going to tell you the truth, which is that some days are extraordinarily ordinary and good, and some days the weight of it lands again, unexpected, in the middle of some unremarkable moment, hanging a dish towel, hearing a hymn on the radio, and I sit with it until it passes. I've learned not to be afraid of those moments. They are not setbacks. They are part of the honest work of healing. I am still at Greater Calvary Fellowship. That was not an automatic decision. I sat with it for several weeks, prayed over it, spoke honestly with Sister Laverne and with my daughter Kezia and with the Lord. There were mornings when the idea of walking through those doors again felt impossible. Not because of shame, because I had done nothing shameful, but because of grief for what I had believed we were building together, grief for the version of my life I had understood to be true. I stayed because of the women. I stayed because of Sister Paulette and Sister Naomi and Sister Glory and Sister Laverne and Sister Odessa, who opened her mouth without instruction and led us in song on a Sunday morning when we all needed to remember that we had come somewhere by faith and that somewhere real and lasting was still beneath our feet. I stayed because the church, when it chose correctly, when it cost them something to choose correctly, proved that it was more than the man who had stood in its pulpit. The church is the people. The church is the covenant. The church is what endures when the individuals inside it fail. Brother Isaiah Caldwell has taken on the pastoral role in an interim capacity. He preaches carefully and humbly. He does not preach as though the pulpit is his by right. He preaches as though it is a trust, which it always was, and should always have been understood to be. I am the head of the Women's Fellowship again. I did not seek the position. Sister Laverne brought it to me on behalf of the board, quietly, in the way she does everything. She said, "We need you in that seat." I thought about it for a week, and then I said yes, because the work still needed doing, and I still knew how to do it. My marriage is over. I want to say that plainly, because I think some people wait for a story like this to end with a reconciliation. And I want to honor the women listening who are facing their own moment of decision and need to hear that a woman can walk away from a broken covenant with her dignity fully intact and her faith fully present. I filed the papers in the 3rd month after that Sunday. Elijah did not contest them. There have been no dramatic scenes. There is only the long, quiet work of separating two lives that were thoroughly entwined, which is its own particular form of grief and its own particular form of freedom. I do not hate him. Hatred requires a continuous investment of energy that I would rather spend elsewhere. I grieve him. The man I believed I knew. The partnership I believed we had. I hold him accountable in the only way that matters now, which is that I am honest when I speak about what happened. And I do not protect a reputation that he sacrificed himself. I did not rise alone. I was never meant to. And neither If you are sitting somewhere right now carrying something you have been carrying too long by yourself, are you? I want to close with what I have come to understand, not as a sermon. I have heard enough sermons, but as a woman who sat in a pew and watched truth arrive uninvited, without ceremony, and change everything. The scripture says the truth will set you free. And I have lived long enough to know that freedom is not always the feeling you are hoping for. Sometimes freedom feels like standing in a sanctuary, while everything you thought you knew burns away and you are left with nothing but the air in your lungs, and the women sitting near you, and the voice of God that you have always had access to and always somehow trusted more than you gave yourself credit for. The congregation of Greater Calvary chose truth over comfort on a Wednesday night in a room I was not in. They chose it, knowing it would cost them their pastor, their stability, months of uncertainty. They chose it because a community that preaches accountability must be willing to practice it in the hardest possible moment, or it has no business preaching anything at all. What truth restores is not what it takes. It does not give back the years. It does not return the marriage to what it was before, because it was never what you believed it was. What it restores is something more durable. The integrity of the ground you are standing on, the knowledge that what is real is real. The quiet certainty that you are no longer living inside a story that was built on someone else's concealment. I am standing on ground I know is solid. And the women beside me, Laverne, Paulette, Naomi, Gloria, Odessa, and every woman in that congregation who stayed, who held, who showed up, they are standing there with me. We did not rise alone. We were never meant to. When a community chooses truth, it pays a price. The comfort of what it believed, the man it thought it knew. But what it receives in return is the ground it can trust again. The covenant that holds because it was tested and held anyway. This is not a story about what was taken. This is a story about what remained. If this testimony touched something in you today, if it reached a part of your life that you have been sitting with quietly, I want you to know that you are not alone. Leave a comment below. Share this with a woman who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel so you are here for the next story. We are not finished. We have more truth to tell. Thank you for watching. God bless you. And God keep you. Black Queens Unbroken. Because every truth told in love is an act of healing.